And today on the Going North podcast, where we're celebrating 3 years of podcasting on this show, hashtag GNP Year 3. We got one hell of a guest for you today because my goodness, this guy right here, my goodness. In Toastmasters at the Catonsville Toastmasters Club, I met one of the friendliest faces ever who eventually became a mentor in the organization. And this guy right here, he's been one hell of a supporter. And now, with all of his encouraging me and countless other youth to really be the best versions of themselves, he now himself is in the business of immortality. This guy right here, thought leader, motivational speaker, advocate, and founder. This guy right here, spreading the message of player safety to parents, coaches, and student athletes around the country and soon to be around the world. This guy right here, featured on Good Morning America, CNN, ESPN, SportsCenter, and HBO's Real Sports, and he resides right here in the land of charm, crime, and crab cakes, Baltimore, Maryland. So let's give it up for Mr. Eminem himself, Marty McNair. How you doing today, sir?
Hey, Dom, how are you, buddy? Good seeing you. Thank you for that edification. I'm like, wow, I have done those things. Thank you, man. Thank you for having me. I'm just glad I had the opportunity to, we have a voice, and I'm glad, congratulations to you on your platform, and I'm just grateful that, I'm a guest on your show.
Hey, it's been a long time coming, man. It's
Boy,
like,
I know, right? I know.
yeah, it's kind of sad the way the first book happened, but as I was reading it, I'm like, man, I actually almost broke down into tears reading the introduction, man, because you told me about your past, but I didn't know all of it. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, man, like
Mm-hmm.
the
Yeah.
like the pain that people go through and you just don't know about it, man.
No.
It's one other thing.
Right. Hey, Dom, well, that was one of the reasons that I was always, so vested in your success because, really one of the main things was, I was just so impressed with you as a young person. And, a lot of stuff I didn't get till years later. And that was just one of the things that kind of drew me to you is because, you were focused and you were laser focused. And, when you were doing things in your early 20s where I was twice your age and I was just kind of getting into Toastmasters and self-development, things like that. So I've always admired you and I've always felt that you were ahead of the curve because, really it's so easy for young people really to kind of go in the opposite direction while they're trying to find their own identity in a sense.
Oh man, and I'm always grateful for that, man. I'm always grateful for that. So for those who have been living under all the rocks and they don't know who the real Eminem is as a Marty McNair, like my feeling is in on some things that folks may not know about you just yet.
Yeah, well, a lot of people, the interesting thing is a lot of people always knew me as Jordan's father and Jordan's success. My son Jordan and Jordan McNair, and a lot of people always knew me from Jordan's success, and it was like, really, as a good dad, and which is what I wanted people to know me for, as just raising a successful son who went on to do some things in regards to academically and sports and a lot of folks just really kind of like, wow, that's Jordan's dad. That's Jordan's dad. And, and I always knew like, wait a minute, I thought I was the more a popular one where, as opposed to, I guess it was Jordan all along. And, Dom, one of the main things in regards to, you and I spoke and, one of the things I admired, you kind of motivated me again to write a book because I knew like the only way for me to get on your show was to write a book. And I'm like, okay, well, guess what? I got to write a book then. So, you were definitely on my list. But for a lot of things that people really don't know about me, they really kind of saw me more when Jordan passed and, we got really like deep down into the mission of awareness, education, and prevention around heat-related injuries and the whole state saving student athletes and the mission of our foundation. But, you and I both know, Dom, in regards to, because we had known each other for years prior to this. So a lot of people really didn't know my development of public speaking and motivational speaking and being just an advocate for a different type I was a reentry advocate. So, I just advocated for people reentering citizens and people that were trying to get their lives together as far as, the battle of substance abuse. So when Jordan passed, really it was somewhat of an easy transition to kind of come into advocating for this particular injury or this particular voice or cause in a sense, because I had already been doing it. So a lot of people that didn't know me Now, you know, like I was already in advocacy mode. I was already in public speaking mode. I was already in motivational speaking mode. Yep.
Oh yeah, man. Like, and you still, and that is awesome nonprofit Mikasa Sukasa. Do you still have that too on top of all
Yeah,
this?
man. Yeah, we're still making a difference. Shout out to my business partner because, you know, really this has kind of turned into a passion for me. And, you know, luckily we've gotten to a point where, you know, hey, you know, we still out, you know, in Baltimore City trying to make a difference, you know, with men and women, you know, just to really try to help people get their lives together. And especially, you know, during COVID right now, you know, somewhat challenging, but, you know, we're still focused on the mission.
Yeah, that's right. Multiple missions, baby. Because like it, and it's really shows that even though like rough things happen to you, you're able to really find that moment and flip it into something positive and bounce back. So, what's probably been the main tools to help you bounce back from all of this, man, and just keep going like this?
Good question, Dom. So for me, the main question, I mean, the tools that I had, I invested in a lot of self-development. So I kind of got into, you know, a lot of, I got really involved in a self-development curriculum called Landmark Forum. I don't know if you heard about it or not, but man, it really changed my life in regards to just how I kind of dealt with the day-to-day things. So of course, you know, the biggest thing uh, of life in a sense is when you lose a loved one. And, you know, clearly the life cycle could be, or the cycle of life could be, you know, you never should lose your child before, you know, you expire in a sense. That's the way it should be. However, you know, I think when Jordan passed, you know, one of the main things, I'm glad I had the tools really to accept, you know, life for what it was and just to kind of stay in the present. So what I really didn't focus on was what time that I didn't have or what experiences that I never was going to have. But I really jumped in on the fact of everything that I did with Jordan for 19 years. I mean, like literally, you know, we had a full 19 years. He lived a full 19 years. And, you know, I really look at it, his mission may have been to do exactly, you know, what's being done right now. Because, you know, one of the interesting things about heat-related injuries was Jordan wasn't the first. He was the 31st player in the NCAA that had expired from a heat-related injury on the first day of practice in the last 20 years. And not to mention the multiple youth student athletes at the AAU level we've lost. Just, you know, we lose a higher number yearly, and I had never heard of it. So, you know, maybe it may have been his mission to come in. His 19 years were extremely impactful, you know, to make a difference and become a poster boy for safety of student athletes.
Yeah, because when I got to that statistic towards the end, I was like, you know what? Like
Yeah, man.
that's something that they never talk about. They've been so successful at keeping that under the darn rug for so many decades.
Yep. Yeah.
Like people never knew about that, like me included. Like it.
Yeah, of course. Well, I didn't know about a heat related injury as well. I thought a heat stroke when, you know, Jordan initially got injured. You know, we just initially thought, you know, hey, it was a heat stroke and you've been out in the sun too long, and you know, all you need to do is get the shade and drink some water, and you know everything will be fine. And unfortunately, you know, it was more tragic. It's a tragic injury, but the thing is, Dom, it's a 100% preventable injury, and that's why there shouldn't be an excuse for losing the student athlete as a result of. And that's really our goal of our mission, really, that, you know, bring awareness, education, and prevention around this. And the interesting thing, Dom, is sad to say, we've lost 5 kids already at the high school level in the last month. This summer
Damn.
alone, 5 student athletes. And it's just sad that, you know, it's a sad that, you know, student athletes have to continuously, you know, go from a coach's lack of information or a sports organization's lack of information. So really, this is what we do right now. But I mean, it's really sad to see 5 young people lose their lives behind something that was totally preventable.
Yeah, man. Especially now during this darn COVID thing, where I'm not sure if entirely sure if everybody's wearing a mask or not, and that just makes practice even probably 3 times as hard as it already was.
You know, Dom, the interesting thing, man, with sports right now, sports is a challenging situation because, you know, of course, you know, as America, we all love sports. However, you know, to what cost? And
Mm.
clearly sports makes a lot of money. And at the end of the day, I emphasize the student athletes, especially at the college level. A student athlete's life is only worth the $10,000 that the NCAA has that insurance policy on every student athlete. $10,000. Now they'll make millions, but at the end of the day, we got to ask ourselves from a student athlete's perspective, like, you know, the student athlete has to know their own worth. The family of a student athlete has to know their worth. It's like, okay, do I let my child play? Henceforth, the name of the book, Can My Child Play? And you know, really the reason that I named it that is because, you know, while Jordan was a lifelong athlete, and, you know, one of the main things I just like, you know, every other father in America, the father of a student athlete, or most parents, we only ask one question. We ask two questions. Can my child play, and why isn't my child playing? We don't ask that laundry list of questions that in between, you know, if my child gets hurt, what's going to happen? If my child gets injured, what's going to happen? If my child can't play again, what's going to happen? What's the closest hospital? What's the closest? Do you have an emergency action plan? Do you have training? And I can just go with a laundry list of questions. And when Jordan was highly recruited by, I mean, a lot of big time schools in the Big Ten and the NCAA overall and all the conferences. And when, you know, we decided to, you know, land on the school that we chose, which was University of Maryland, when the coaches were sitting at our desk, at our table, a couple of days prior to recruitment, I asked one question. I asked two questions, Dom. And I asked, can Jordan get some playing time? And also, what's your stance around, or what's your support around mental health and substance abuse? Because that was all I knew. I didn't know anything about it. I just assumed that, or, you know, Jordan's mom and I, Tanya, we assumed that everything in the event of, they knew what to do. And, you know, clearly if they did, you and I wouldn't be sitting here now.
Yeah, man, that's definitely rough. And funny enough, I was looking on social media, and there was this one random post where it mentioned how some colleges are going to be going broke from not having their darn college football season this year. So it's like
Yeah.
the student athlete is definitely worth a lot more than $10,000. It's you can't put a price tag on that.
You can't put a price on it. And Dom, you know, one of the things is, of course, I mean, that's a big business. That's definitely college sports are big businesses. However, you know, student athletes have to realize that, you know, this is a system where student athlete is expendable. Guess what? You get hurt. Guess what? We go on to the next one. You don't work out. Guess what? We'll go on to the next kid that's ready to step up. And the main thing is, man, you know, you have to realize that when do we realize, like, you know what, my life is worth more than this? You know, a lot of schools right now, they're asking student athletes to sign liability waivers. So basically what you're saying is, if I come in and practice, I get COVID, oh, well, it's just on me. And it's like, okay, nah, you know, wait up, my life is worth a little bit more than this, or my safety is worth a lot more than this. So this is where, you know, we try to emphasize, and guess what? The world has changed. And guess what? A lot of players, they may have had, they were going to, you know, maybe they had an opportunity to go to the next level, and, you know, they didn't get a chance, and all the things that, you know, could have happened where COVID has kind of prevented us from doing. However, you know, at the end of the day, what's your personal safety is worth? You know, one of the things I told Jordan, man, you know, and this is one of my biggest regrets as a father. I taught him everything except for how to listen to his body. When his body told him stop, to stop. And I told him and I didn't teach him when he felt uncomfortable with coaches and the staff, to speak up and say something. And I never mentioned that to him, Dom. And that was really the thing that I used to kind of, you know, beat myself up about. But like, how would I have known? I had never experienced that.
Yeah, that's definitely rough, especially the piece of the book where he mentioned how every year on his birthday he would tell him something new. He's like, hey, this is what Dad was doing when he was your age. He taught him all these lessons, man. It's like, darn.
Yeah, man. You know, hey, Dom, I grew up in the 80s, man. I grew up in the 80s in Baltimore City, and you know, our years were, our level of maturity, I wanted to rush my level of maturity, and my maturity was like dog years almost. You know, like even though I was like 15, man, you know, like I was 15 in dog years, and you can imagine where I was doing everything that the average 15-year-old shouldn't have been doing, you know, and I had a somewhat of a normal lifestyle, but our maturity level was so different, and we wanted to rush everything, and I wanted to rush all these different things. And as I mentioned in the book, you know, like I had my own challenges, and you know, I had my own defense mechanisms up. So I wanted to rush everything. And that's one of the things I used to emphasize to Jordan, like, guess what? Take your time. Everything you want in life is going to come. Just don't rush. There's no need to expedite it. Enjoy being 16, enjoy being 15. And you see all the comparisons that I made age-wise, you know, by the time Jordan we were preparing for his 16th birthday party, you know, I'd already had a criminal record, unfortunately, you know, and not something I'm proud of, but I never wanted him to. I was definitely going to press for him not to repeat any of my bad decision making.
Oh yeah, yeah, and he followed him well too, because like he even asked you for permission to hang out with other kids. I'm
Hey,
like, oh
man,
dang, all right.
I did good. I did. Hey, John,
you did great, man.
I did good, man. I definitely. I'm proud. You know, I could say, you know, me and Tanya, we both did that, but he was definitely not going to fall into the traps that I had. You know, I didn't have that father figure. You know, my misguided rites of passage into manhood came from older friends in the community, and you know, and we were the only information sources that we had. So, of course, you know, nobody was. You know, I only remember 3 fathers in my neighborhood, and you know, not that it just wasn't. You know, that it just wasn't relevant. I had a next door neighbor. He had five children, and he was a great man, and you know, he was a father to everybody. I had another friend whose father used to take us to and fro basketball practice and basketball games. And then I remember the last father figure in the community was my 13 and under BNBL basketball coach. And from there, we just raised ourselves. We ran off our own information, and, you know, and clearly you see where that got us.
Hey, at least in the short term and the long term, if you're looking back now at what you're creating, I mean, it actually ended up working out.
Yeah, man, it worked out. I tell people all the time, you know, I had my fatherly advice didn't get cut short at 19 years of Jordan. I mean, every young person I speak to, you know, it's like, here's my number, you know, call me. I mean, like, you know, I'll give you, I have a ton of fatherly advice to give, because, you know, I just think as a parent, you know, you want your child to be so much better than you. And I think one of my chapters in the book was Be Better Than Me. And that's any parent. You want your child not to have to go through whatever challenges you may have had trying to find your way. Yep.
That's what I'm talking about right there. So since this is far from your first rodeo metaphorically, is there a question that you wish would be asked more often when you're on these interviews talking about the mission that you're on and the wonderful family?
Yeah, man, you know, I think that, you know, people, I think that if people focus more on, you know, like I told you, Don, we just lost 5 kids, man. You know, we lost 5 young people within this summer alone. And man, you know, the main mission of our book was really to, you know, educate while telling our story, you know. And it's interesting because my mom, you know, it's like, she was like, wow, you know, like, did you take a medical class or something along the way? And I'm like, nah, man, I literally just had to really educate myself really, really quick to see what was going on with Jordan. And the interesting thing, man, you know, it's really like 2 families that are advocating for heat-related injuries. 2, you know, it's the Jordan McNair Foundation, and then you have the Zach Martin Memorial Foundation, and you have the Polzerberg charity, Polzerberg Heat Index charity. So both of his parents, you know, basically work in different parts of Florida. Zach died a year before Jordan. He was a high schooler, died. I mean, you know, same story. Went down on the football field. He was a lineman. First day of practice, there was no cold water tub on the field. So, you know, I kind of worked with them. But the interesting thing, man, you know, like really we need more assistance with this, because, you know, I don't think that any coach maliciously says, hey, I'm going to kill a kid today. Nobody does that, because I've trained coaches, and, you know, that's their biggest fear. But the main goal really is just to educate people and, you know, like, man, let's just get education. And if every student athlete, if you have a child that's playing any game, any type of sports, they're susceptible to, you know, anything happening. It's not a matter of what's going to happen. It's just a matter of when it's going to happen. Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
Ain't a matter if it's going to happen, it's when.
Yeah,
wow.
Literally.
Wow.
Yeah, man. I mean, you look at sports, Dom. I mean, you know, hey, kids are playing, and, you know, you're going to get some type of injury. And the main thing is, you know, how often, you know, my book talks, you know, tells parents what questions to ask of any sporting organization. Like, guess what? The questions I mentioned earlier. if these questions aren't answered to your comfortability, this isn't an organization my child can play for, because you're not telling me, I'm giving you my most precious gift, and you're not telling me what you're going to do in the event that my child gets hurt. Keep in mind, I said it's not a matter of what, but it's when. And it's not how, but when. So therefore, I need to know that your organization has everything in line that my child will be safe in the event that I'm not there. And that's really the main focus, man, on how we keep our young people safe. But we got to ask questions, and we just can't assume that at any level of competition that coaches know. They people just like us. Yeah, they're people just like us. And we have to educate. And the more educated and aware that we all are as, parents, coaches, student athletes, guess what? That'll be the safer that our children will be. So that's really, my biggest, our biggest goal, especially with the book, let's educate folks on what we didn't know.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed. And not only telling your story is powerful, and you mentioned the questions that parents need to ask when it comes to their student athletes. So besides, can my child play and can they get time on the field? Any other questions that parents should really keep in mind to ask when they're...
Yeah. I think that parents need to ask like 3 to 5 basic questions. And the basic questions are beyond can my child play? That shouldn't even be that question isn't in the 5. So the main questions you should ask, any parent should ask around an emergency action plan is, what's the closest hospital? In the event of my child gets hurt, what hospital will they go to? Who's going to ride in the ambulance with my child? Who's going to call me? What's the closest police station? Right? What type of trainings do the coaches have? Do they have CPR training? Have they been trained on how to use a cold water tub? If my child gets hurt or my child has an asthma attack, who's gonna administer the pump? My child's allergic to bee stings. If he or she gets bit by a bee or stung by a bee, who's gonna administer the EpiPen? And last but not least, guess what? If there's a cold water tub, I'm sorry, not last but not least, do you have any type of athletic trainers at practice or on the field or during the games? Because, clearly that's the closest thing you can get to a medical professional right there. And if these things aren't answered, or what type of trainings does your staff have? And if those type of questions aren't answered, guess what? You may have to think about going to a different organization. And I'd say to parents, get involved. Get involved. Don't be afraid to ask questions. Long gone are, I came up along the line where, it's a saying that says parents parent and coaches coach. So what that means to a coach is, from a coach's perspective is, guess what? I'm the subject matter expert here. You're not. So don't ask me any questions. It's like, wait a minute. Hold up now. Hey, Dom, hold on, man. And we can get so conditioned. We can really get so conditioned to buy into that. And it's like, oh, yeah, well, the coach said, no. Heck no. I need to know what's going on with my child. What are you going to do in the event to keep my child safe or other children safe? And I just think that parents, we probably need to take it more seriously. Dom, I can't even describe, it's an indescribable feeling to lose a child. And I hope nobody ever experiences that. This isn't a club that anybody wants to be a part of. However, I think that if we could educate parents on what to do or what questions to ask, guess what? You'll never experience that, especially when it comes to sports. So, or we could diminish the situations where young people are losing their lives from a preventable injury.
Amen to that, and brought up some powerful points right there. And I feel like, I guess with the whole questioning the coaches sort of thing, even though they're supposed to be the subject matter expert of the thing, is that some parents may be so happy to get their kids out of the house that they don't even think about that.
Just take them.
Just take them.
Give me a break. Right. Of course. Yeah. Hey, Dom, but again, I think that, because at the end of the day, Dom, our questioning didn't start until we got the call about Jordan being injured. And when en route to the emergency room, I literally came in the door asking questions. And it was like, and Dom, I said it to myself 1,000 times in those 2 weeks, that Jordan was fighting for his life. Like, what happened? What happened? What didn't I prepare him for? What did I forget to ask? And it was just like, what got by me? And I don't want anybody to experience that. So, if I had asked those questions that I just, which are listed in the book as well, If I had asked those questions, guess what? I probably would have got some, prior to, maybe we would have made a better decision. I mean, at times it's just a matter of saying, hey, you know what? My son's going to this particular school and, we don't want to mess up his opportunity, but at the end of the day, guess what? This is my child here. And at the end of the day, if your child gets injured, he or she's not going home to live with the coach. They coming back to you. So I think that, we have to ask, these questions to ensure our own level of comfort in regards to safety. And I hope everybody learns from our story. Because again, I mean, I can't say it didn't have to happen. I'm not that, but, I think Jordan's mission was to, guess what? I think it was Jordan's mission for 19 years to be who he was. And I'm glad that it was me, because I'm glad that I had the flexibility, or I'm glad that I had an advocacy spirit and an advocacy background to pick up this baton and keep running with it.
That's right. And you're doing all the running, baby, and I love it too, because this book is going to be on audio too for those who like to be on the go.
Yeah.
And speaking of go, like, since you mentioned the club that a lot of folks don't need to be in, the fact that those who lose their child before them, any advice for those parents that may be listening right now going through that same thing of, like, in addition to the books and the speaking, the advocacy, anything else that has helped you to really stay strong and keep pushing as hard as you do through these times?
Well, wow, Don, that's a really good question. I think for us, my thing was, I knew that if I didn't get in front of it from a positive perspective, we would have went down, and I speak for Tanya and I both, we would have went down that rabbit hole of despair and depression. Jordan was our everything. I mean, that's what he was our glue to our relationship. And, one of the main things, it was like, do we sit here and let this consume us? And like I said, back to that toolbox question you asked me earlier, and, I just kind of accepted what had happened as what had happened. And it's like, one of the questions, of the many questions, if we don't know these things, how many other parents don't know these things? And that's where it was like, if we don't, I mean, how many other parents? So, and guess what? Jordan was no different than any other student athlete, and it was like, man, if we don't know, how many others don't know? And it's like, let's take this and turn it around or get in front of this. And we started the Jordan McNair Foundation 3 days after Jordan passed. And it was like, but I've always encouraged Jordan to have an advocacy spirit, because guess what? I was optimistic that Jordan would come through this. I mean, literally maybe 2 days prior to him passing. And, this was after a major organ transplant and everything. I'm just a total optimist. My glass is, half full all the time. And one of the main things, I just kept telling him, like, man, you're going to have a heck of a story, because guess what? You may not ever play football again, but at least, you can do something with your story. And I think that we all have a story, and it's just a matter of how we got through, as opposed to what we went through. Yeah, we all go through things, but how do we get through? So the answer to your question, Dom, in regards to, parents, unfortunately, that are a member of this club now, nobody wants to be a part of. I think that, really, try to, it's challenging to tell people how to grieve, but, just go through the process. And, I was telling a friend of mine today, one of my colleagues today, and she had just had a baby. And I was telling her, I said, the best piece of advice somebody gave me was, children are gifts from God. They aren't ours in the first place. Now, the thing is, do everything you possibly can do to enjoy your gift, because one day you may have to return it. Sometimes it may be sooner than later. And I think that, when we look at it like that, guess what? A lot of us, we were blessed to have these gifts and enjoy these gifts, and, nothing is promised. So, at times, just go through the process. And I would encourage, all of these parents, unfortunately, to, join our mission, when they're up to it, and like, how can we prevent this? Because I just told you, Dom, it's only 2 families that are advocating for this type of injury. And, really, I mean, we need all the assistance we can get. And, of course, we can't just say, hey, you lost your child tomorrow. Everybody's not like us. Everybody's not going to say, hey, we're going to start the advocacy efforts 3 days after your child passed. Hey, Dom, it's a process, but, our hearts are with them. Our prayers are with them. They're in our prayers. And, we pray that they make it through, within time. Yeah, man, it definitely, and I would say, right, Dom, even with me with the book, like my grief, my grief went into the work that I did in the foundation. However, the therapeutic portion of it came from when I wrote the book. And that's what really kind of like gave me some, not really closure, but it kind of put me at peace. And it was just like, wow, this is my son's story. And these are the things that we've gone through. And, you know, here I can share our story with the world. And it was just like, you know, it was very painful to write it. But once I got it out, you know, I was definitely in a better place.
Amen to that. Amen to
Yep.
that. And it's a powerful book. It's a powerful book. Like, everybody should really pick up that book and read it, because just the whole comparison contrast thing of father and son and the mission that came out of it is definitely a powerful story that everyone needs to read. So we're coming down to the magical question that every guest gets to receive, and in your case is going to be special edition. So if you were to wake up tomorrow and you were 25 again, but this time no prison, no pandemic, you're basically 25 again with your mission now, what advice would you give to yourself?
Boy. Man, good question, Dom. If I could go back and give myself a piece of information, life-saving information that would kind of, you know, change the course, I would have found my identity, and I would have been comfortable in my own skin, with not feeding into peer pressure. And, you know, guess what, you know, and take life a lot more seriously. And I think that, you know, I would have used my time more wisely. Use your time wisely. That's what I would have given myself, and enjoy the moment and really, you know, take time, utilize your time more wisely, or time management wisely.
Oh, yeah, there we go. Time-honored advice.
and look, save money out of your paycheck, right?
You can say that again too.
Save money out of your paycheck, because you will. Hey, look, you may be 50 one day, right? Yeah, exactly. So make better financial decisions. Right, exactly. Yeah,
that's right.
Exactly.
Save money out your paycheck.
Hey, man, save money out your paycheck. You're going to need it. Heck yeah, man, for sure.
That's what I'm talking about. My man, Mr. Eminem, baby. So for those who want to keep in magical contact with you, and heck, even donate to the foundation, what's the best way for folks to reach out to you?
Man, please visit us at www.thejordanmcnairfoundation.org. TheJordanMcnair Foundation.org. You can basically go to our page, you can purchase the book. The book is available on Amazon and the JordanMcNairFoundation.org website. Basically, you can kind of see everything that we've done, read a lot of good articles, and we have a lot of content on our actual website in regards to the mission and what we've done. So there would never be a question of where your actual donations go to. We donate cold water tubs to organizations that need them, and that's really our main mission. Actually, we in the process now of donating 50 cold water tubs. We donated over 200 last year from Alaska to Florida. Who knew they needed a cold water tub in Alaska? But hey, guess what? We got it done. This year, due to COVID, you know, our numbers kind of came down. But, you know, the main thing is you can really get on our page, and, you know, we got the pictures and everything to prove it, and the articles. And, you know, really our main goal, like I said, man, really is just to save some student athletes and diminish heat-related deaths, man. That's our primary focus. And, you know, that's how we go about doing it. Yep. But please visit our site, and you can pretty much see everything that we're doing. Yep.
Well, there you have it, folks. Head over to the JordanMcNairFoundation.com. Check out all the wonderful stuff that they're doing. Pick up some copies of the book. Be on the lookout for the audio book version, too, for those who don't feel like reading, because the man himself is reading the book, too. So you know it's going to be a treat. That's right.
Yep.
Won't even need a trick.
Hey, Dom, yeah, how about that? You can listen to the audio book in your car. Hopefully that'll be out probably within, I want to say by the end of September, just to keep it safe. And Dom, it's JordanMcNairFoundation.org. And Dom, I want all your listeners to hear, you know, our story talks about fatherhood. It talks about raising my son, my redemption, but it also talks about co-parenting, self-love, and love for, you know, one another. And most importantly, I think a lot of parents need to hear, you know, the co-parenting piece, because guess what? at times, man, we may not be together. Tanya and I weren't together. However, we were together raising Jordan. And, he was the most important thing. And I think that, the next book that I may write may be, fatherhood and co-parenting successfully, but it could definitely be done. And I mean, we're definitely, a living testimony in regards to raising a successful child.
Oh, shoot. Amen to that. Definitely had to get that website right, and looking forward to the fatherhood book too. Got to have you back on for that one too.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Yep. It's coming. It's definitely coming. We're gonna kind of try to get some good play off of Can My Child Play, and while I'm working on the actual next book now. Thanks. I'm going to say thanks to COVID for allowing me to write this book. But hey, look, man, I felt that while we were in the pandemic phase and quarantine, I started writing last year, but it was like, you know what, I have to utilize this time. And I'm like, if I don't write this or finish this now, along with a good editor, man, it just wasn't going to get done. So I just literally, once again, time management made the best out of it. Yep.
Amen. Well, there you have it, folks. There you have it. Check it out. Check it out. Be on the lookout for round 2 and pick up a bunch of copies of round 1, folks. So any parting words before we close it out, Marty?
Yes, Dom, I encourage everybody to get the book. Man, I just think that everybody can get something from this. And the interesting thing about, Can My Child Play, there's no racial barriers, there are no financial barriers, there's no sexual barriers in regards to cultural or anything like that, because we all have student athletes. And that's one thing that we can all relate to. Raising a child that's playing sports, and most importantly, raising a child playing sports and keeping that child safe.